It's Friday. We're going to give it another minute or so. I'm going to put a poll out after this session to see what it is. We have like 300 people in the Facebook group, and we, sometimes only have like 3 or 4 people showing up for coaching. So I'm an entrepreneurial mindset. I'm not like in limiting beliefs, like, oh, nobody wants to hear from me. It's like, all right, what's not working? Something's not working. Either this time is not working, or the content is not something they're interested in, or they don't need any coaching in their lives, but they're in the Facebook group. I don't know if anybody can declare that they've arrived, because I think we all need some, encouragement and coaching. And this is all for all of us. This is not me, declaring from a mountaintop how everybody should be living their lives. It's all about that connectivity and community. So I know we're just getting going, and there's always like, all right, trying to build momentum, getting going. But it takes time and effort and energy for me to prep for this stuff, and then spend an hour. And so I want to make sure that I'm serving a need and providing value for people. So I want to just get a better sense of like what's going on for people to not be able to show up at this time. So is there a better time? Is there better topics? Is there a better person they want to hear from? It's all good. This is, again, I'm just figuring it out as I go forward. And so I appreciate you guys just being patient and early adopters to the value that I'm trying to provide people in the free coaching. So, all right, well, today we're going to talk about transformation and how tools for transformation in your life. So what I want to do is, well, in case, because I think a couple of people are new, let me share my screen, and hopefully if you're not on video, you can still see. The rules of engagement for our time together are here: self-compassion, compassion for others, and respect. Want this to be a safe and trusted environment. And for example, last week, we got into some pretty personal stuff. It was really a beautiful conversation with people, with family members and spouses. And it was just a beautiful conversation. Angie, I can't remember if you were there the whole time, but it was, and so I just decided, until I can get a sense of who are the other, 290 people in the Facebook group, and why are they there, and are they, truly wanting to be a part of a community where we're like richly, safely sharing with each other. I just felt like I didn't want to share the full video with everybody, because people were sharing things going on in their marriages, and I wanted to keep that safe container. I also want to incentivize people to show up for the live conversation, because that's what makes it so much more rich. But I wanted to protect that safe space for several people who shared what was going on in their marriages. So we decided to do a clips, of the coaching points as opposed to the detailed sharing. So I want to be that trusted partner to preserve that safe space. I don't have all the answers, and take what works and discard the rest. If something doesn't land on you, then just let it roll off you, right? And if you've got something to share, because we're really coaching each other here, we all have our life experiences. I'm just sharing mine and creating this space. And if some topic is just too difficult or painful for you, because we're talking about real stuff here, right? And so if something's too difficult, then like disengage, do what you need to do to care for yourself, and seek professional help. I'm not a mental health or medical professional. So those are the ROE. I put this next slide up, pretty much every week. My call sign was Wedge as a fighter pilot, and this is not the reason why I was called that, but I believe that part of my purpose in life, especially in Martha 3.0, is to help people increase the space between stimulus and response in our life, so that we have agency, that we have an awareness of what's going on inside us, and that we can respond the way we want to from our kind of higher self, as opposed to reacting to stimulus around us, which can often be out of fear or be out of other negative triggers that are happening, just creating a little bit more space in that wedge, right? So that's kind of my life purpose here. So as we get going here, let me stop sharing. I want to hear, just type into the chat if you can. Again, I've been on Zooms where I'm driving before, so obviously be safe where if you can't do that. What area of your life you're looking for some transformation in? And just in general, it doesn't have to be in detail, but I'm looking for a health transformation, something related to my profession and my purpose, my romantic relationships, my family relationships. So just if you can, type in, something you're focusing on that you're looking for a change and looking for a transformation in that area. Wait, purpose. Thanks, McKenna. Yeah, for me, I'm working lately on health, and I'll share that, although I didn't realize I needed transformations. So I'll get into those details. Confidence, controlling high intensity anxiety, emotional flooding. Thanks, Jamie, for sharing that. Thanks, Angie. Okay. All right. Crystal, you may not be in a position to type, so I won't wait for you, but I'll keep an eye on if you do type something in. Okay, let me go back to sharing here, multitasking. Okay. So, and I can't see the chat while I'm doing this, but I'll look at it again when I can. Okay, so let me just briefly tell you where I've had a transformation in my own physical health that I didn't even know I needed. So sometimes we transform because we're purposely focused on transforming. In this particular case, my word of the year, and I brought some props with me. This is on a yellow sticky note. It's in my bathroom. It usually gets kind of yellowed and wrinkled by this time of the year. But I have words of the year. Sometimes I have multiple words of the year, but for the last 2 years, just where I am in my life, I've kind of shifted from a make it happen, where I'm just doing brute force, which I did a lot in my past in order to make things happen and be successful. And now I'm more in this place kind of spiritually, energetically to be like, oh, let me get myself to a place where I allow things to happen. And I'm just kind of more in tune to, attracting things into my life and allowing for them to happen. And so that's the space that I'm in. Be, careful what you wish for, right? When you say allow, to, the universe, to God, it's like, okay, she's ready, allow. And every year I go through a process. I won't bore you with all the details, but I focus a lot on identity. I focus on a lot on my overall identity. I've got my I am statements up here on identity. We can do this in another coaching session. I'm courageous. I'm integrity. I'm generous. I'm growing. I'm relentless, and a bunch more. And being really focused on your identity. And in different areas of my life, I do a past year review and I do a kind of future planning for the year, but I don't set goals anymore. Okay. So this is kind of my kind of radical idea of the week is I don't set goals anymore. What I do is I set identity-based visions, and then I build habits that are going to move me towards that future self vision. And I'll get into that a little bit more now. Okay. So for my physical health, I thought I was actually pretty physically healthy and strong, and I do crazy athletic things and backpacking and paragliding and, working out in the gym for my age. I really thought I was like in a pretty good place. So I literally wrote on my butcher paper here, all I wrote for my identity is I'm physically healthy and take care of this impermanent vessel. That was my identity in the physical space, health, physical space. And then I wrote a bunch of habits to support that. And back in December, that was 7.5 hours of sleep, yoga 2 times a week, strength training 3 times a week, cold plunging, IR sauna, Wim Hof breathing. Like that's all I wrote down. I was like, yeah, okay, otherwise I'm good, right? I'm good. So very long story short, don't have time to go into it. But I was a bunch of my friends in an entrepreneurial network I'm in. And I'll stop sharing here real quick. I started this Lean Life Challenge for the new year, for a 90-day challenge where we track all of our macros and what we're eating and specific workouts, and we were coached by somebody. And I just really didn't think that was for me. I thought that was for people who needed to lose weight and get in shape. But for whatever reason, I was drawn to join, mostly because they were my friends. And I thought, hey, I want to build a little muscle. And I signed up and I filled out the form, and this is just kind of human behavior. I wrote down all the things I wasn't willing to do in the intake form. Basically, I was resisting any change. I was like, I don't like to cook. I don't eat meat. I'm not willing to do this. I'm not willing to do this. And I kind of laugh at it now. I was in full on resistance. I was asking for a change, but our initial response, usually this is just, it protects us. Change is something that we don't want. And there's an element neurologically in our body that goes back to preserving us from saber-toothed tigers is we resist change. It wants to protect us because change is dangerous, change is scary. So it prefers the status quo. So I was resisting, but then I broke through the resistance because my word of the year is allow. And I was open to the change. And I discovered very quickly that I had been running my body into the ground. I was actually skinny fat and didn't realize it. I was undernourished, overtrained, and it's surprising to me that I didn't have some major health diagnosis based on me doing all these crazy physical things I was doing on mental toughness, not on putting fuel in my engine. And I had this blind spot. I don't know why, because I really do care about athletic performance, but I had this blind spot about the fuel going into my body that I didn't care enough to even understand it. So I started counting macros every day. It was a huge pain in the ass. Like unlike what we're going to talk about today, I had massive changes going on in every area of my life. I was like cooking and cleaning and prepping and counting, and like it was a lot of change, but I was doing it with my friends, so I had accountability, and I was just like, all right, I had to do it. Once I got past the resistance, over 6 weeks, I lost 14 pounds of fat, gained a couple pounds of muscle, completely transformed my physical health by working out less and eating more and eating the right stuff. I mean, the whole thing is crazy, honestly, but it's crazy in a beautiful way. And what I'm trying to share is that I have a real life testimonial in the last few months. I mean, everywhere I go, people are like, Martha, you look like amazing, right? I mean, we're doing the work, but I actually am doing the things we're talking about today to transform. The first thing is to be willing to allow change, right? That's just kind of like a mindset. Am I willing to change something? The second is have compassion on yourself and know that you're going to resist the change. Like it's there to protect you. So now let's figure out how to bring about change in a way where we can trick our bodies, maybe not in a like full-on change that I just went through. That was a very disrupting change, but in kind of daily habits that can then bring about the change. Does anybody have any questions so far? I want to make sure that makes sense about kind of the ingredients for transformation, right? First is being open, allow. The second is prepare for resistance, okay? And then you got to be willing to break through, be aware of it. And then we're going to get into some tactical tools, all right, about how to bring about that change. All right, so Crystal, I did now see graceful transformation between working mom to a teen to caregiver for parents. Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let me go back, and I don't want to spend the whole time going through slides. So I'm going to go through fast and furious here, and then we're going to go through an exercise, all right? But I want to give you some tools. So a lot of what I'm talking about here, I personally have experienced, but I've also learned from some of the best that are out there. And the two that I'm going to reference here, you don't have, if you want to read the books, you can, but part of my role here in this coaching is I read voraciously. I'll listen to podcasts voraciously. I can be the reporter for you on like, hey, here are the nuggets in this book. If you want to go deeper, read it, but here's the nuggets from these books. So the first one is James Clear. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And the other guy is BJ Fogg, who wrote a book called Tiny Habits. Now, I love James Clear and the way he thinks. I would sign up for his weekly newsletter if I were you. I really love it. He just drops in some wisdom. It's called the 3-2-1 newsletter every week. 3 ideas from him, 2 from somebody else, and 1 question. And they're little nuggets of things to think about that can sometimes like put a smile on your face or stop you in your tracks. And I just love the way he thinks. So I'm learning from him and my own experience here about how to change human behavior. And then what I want to do before we finish today is all of us identify a micro habit in an area of focus that we can start working on today. Okay. So here's the kind of cliff notes on James Clear. Okay. Atomic Habits, the whole book. I just, again, love some of these quotes. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So we often think about like, again, setting goals. I want to run a marathon. I want to stop having negative thoughts in my head and having anxiety all the time. We have these big, like, whoa, it's like moonshot transformation. And then, New Year's resolutions is an example, right? I'm going to stop doing this. And then people just like, they try to change their behavior and then they just fall back to what they're used to. And then they just don't ever, then they beat themselves up. I don't know if you can relate to that. And so his whole teaching based on studying human behavior, the psychology, the neurology is you got to set up systems, processes, and identity-based habits, not big goals that seem insurmountable, but you're gonna be like, all right, moonshot, I'm gonna go for them. And then you don't have a way to get to them, okay? So his approach is identity-based, decide the type of person you wanna be, and then you prove it to yourself every day with these small wins. Okay. So he talks about, he says, every little habit you do related to this vision you have, this identity you have, you're casting a vote every day for that identity when you do that habit. Okay. So if you think about, like, I'll go through some examples here, but if your identity is I'm physically strong and healthy, but you don't feel that way right now, you don't feel like you look that way right now, right? But then you start building some micro habits that actually will set you up to transform in that identity. Sometimes we get stuck because we're like, well, I'm not that identity right now. I'm looking myself in the mirror. I'm not that identity right now. And then we beat ourselves up. What he's saying is this is like a loop of here's your identity and here's your habits, these unsexy habits, these daily things we do when nobody's looking, when it's, mundane, right? But every time you do it, you're casting a vote for the new identity. And then you're actually every day getting closer and closer to actually being that identity is the point, right? As opposed to like, oh, I'm not that identity. No, you are that identity. You claim it, talk about it in first person, like I am. And then you're casting these votes every day. So every day you get up, if that's your identity is I'm fit and healthy and strong, every day you get up and you put your shoes on and you go for a walk around the block, you're casting a vote for that identity. Even if you're not running a marathon, you're putting your shoes on and you're walking around the block, right? So you're casting votes. And look, anybody, all the studies out there, I mean, I know you know this, but anybody who's, won an Olympic gold medal, right? Done something like really hard in their lives, all the sexy stuff where they're getting all the glory. Nobody sees the 4 a.m. wake ups, when they're actually doing the reps and doing the mundane and doing things over and over and over again. The 99.9% of what they do that actually allows them to perform at that moment. It's the same thing. We don't have to be Olympic athletes. It's the same thing in all of our lives. If we want to be able to have hard conversations with the people who we love and set boundaries, if you're casting little votes in the mundane of how you're even preparing for it and thinking about it and writing down things you're going to say, and then you try it and then you do more reps and you're like, all right, I'm setting my boundaries. You're casting those votes and you're moving more towards the person you want to be. That's clear unapologetically with who you are, what you need, what doesn't work for you, right? And then even if we mess it up, which we do all the time, like you're like, oh, try again, go back and do another rep, go back and do another rep, and then you are moving towards that identity. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I'm rushing through a lot of neuroscience here very quickly. When we're pilots, I often talk about the 60-to-1 rule, that if we just get 1 degree off course within 60 miles, we're 1 mile off course, right? So if you take off from New York and you're trying to go to LA and you're 1 degree off course, by the time you get to the West Coast, you're in San Francisco, right? So this can be seen as a negative thing, but also look at it as a positive thing. If I'm trying to change the trajectory I'm trying to go on a new trajectory, just that 1 degree every single day, just that 1 degree. And then, you look, by the time you get to the end of the month or the end of the year, you're like, wow, look how far I've come from where I was. It doesn't feel like it on Monday morning when you get up and do this mundane new habit, but it all adds up over time. And it's the consistency and the discipline. I hate that word actually, because it sounds like a negative, like discipline, like you just got to do it. Just, suck it up and do it. But it's the consistency of doing things daily and routinely that actually make the big change. This is also from James Clear material, that if you have a 1% improvement, look what the graph is over time. And of course, the negative is if we have a 1% decline, then eventually you're getting close to 0, right? So the effects are big. So as I tried to use with my hands here, he talks about how your identity and your habits are just in a constant vote supporting each other. Okay. So here's an example, just to explain it a little bit more concrete. So instead of saying, I want to run a marathon, the identity is I'm a person who is a runner. Instead of saying, I want to finish this painting, I'm an artist. Okay. So let me, as you think about these, I'm going to stop sharing. As you guys talked about the area that you wanted to transform in, can you think of a way to put that into an identity statement? Actually put it in the statement of I am, okay? Instead of the goal, maybe put it into an identity statement of your future self. of I am. Can you take a minute to do that and then type it in the chat? So instead of, like Jamie, you're controlling high intensity anxiety, emotional flooding, what's the positive I am statement? I don't want to do your homework for you here, but like, I am in control of my emotions and I know how to, I'll let you figure it out. But anyway, just a statement that is like, and then it's not just by suppressing them either, right? Like I am at peace, right? And I can manage my emotions. Just think about it as I am statements of the future self vision you have in this area you're trying to support. A person who practices breathing to get back into the parasympathetic state. Okay, that's good. That's a very tactical thing too. That's a little bit of a how, Jamie, right? I would consider, right? I am a person who manages my state with ease. Does that make sense? The how is what you're doing, the breathing to get back into a parasympathetic state. But the identity is, and maybe this applies to you, Angie, too. Like we can copy each other's because we're all looking for a state like this, right? I am a person who manages my internal state with ease, right? And mastery. I mean, wouldn't we all want that, right? And the shit hits the fan, we're able to, no matter what's going on, we're able to be like, I'm aware of what's happening. I can control it with the tools I have. I use the breath a lot, right? I'm not suppressing it, right? I'm sitting with it. If, my uncomfortable emotion, I'm not feeding it. I'm using the tools I have to like settle myself down. So, okay. Thanks, McKenna, for the 1 in 60. Okay. Anybody else want to share their I am statements there? Crystal, let me see if you want to share. I don't want to again give you an example, but if you have a moment to be able to share, I'll keep looking at the chat. Okay, I think hopefully you get the idea. It's the I am enough compassion for myself and others to be working towards a common family goal. Oh, yeah, you're in that classic time frame, right, of kids and the parents. So many women find themselves in. That's beautiful. Okay, so now once you have the identity, and this is something we can refine over time, right? But it's good to just kind of get going like we just did. Think about, now this is you understanding and hacking kind of human behavior to use it to your advantage, okay? So this is all, again, James Clear. And so he basically says, if you're trying to create a new habit, you need a cue, you need some sort of craving, and then your response. Remember, I've talked about the wedge, right? So even just creating a little more space between the craving and response. And then your response is the new behavior, the habit, and then you get the reward. This is kind of how, we evolved as humans. So he talks about, for a good habit, something you're trying to change and do new and make it stick. There's 4 laws. They're related to these 4 things. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Don't make it be hard. Like, this is where all New Year's resolutions that are just like, there's either things you really are not going to make it easy is often a thing. And make it attractive is something you actually don't want to do, but you're like making yourself do it, right? And then you got to feel really satisfied. I mean, I did a lot of things in this Lean Life Challenge that I really didn't want to do. It wasn't easy, so this doesn't totally fit here. But once I started to like lose the weight and gain more energy, even though I didn't realize I needed to lose weight, but I just had fat coming off and I had muscle building. I was like, oh my God. Then it became very satisfying. And every day I wanted to get the reward from it. So I took advantage of these, these laws. So this is if you're trying to break a bad habit, then you do the opposite of it, right? Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. Okay. So if you're interested at all in getting a little bit more detail with him, he has a free downloadable cheat sheet here that you can sign up for. Okay. And McKenna, can you put that in the chat as well? Give me a second to do that. Atomic habit summary with dashes in there. Okay, let's keep going. Now, BJ Fogg, again, similar work. He talks about, I think this really impacted me. 3 ways to create lasting change 1 is have an epiphany. 2 is change your environment. 3 is change. I didn't spell that right. Change our habits in tiny ways. So there is a chance that, all of us could have an epiphany. Okay. It's happened to me. There's something, you could be out, you could be in the shower. You could have a, near death experience. You could have a health scare. You could have something, and like you get an epiphany and like something changes in your life. I meet people like that all the time. Like something changes and it changes rapidly. That's possible, but it's more rare. If that makes sense. The second is change your environment. Sometimes we are stuck in an environment, literally physical environment, people environment, city that we're in, the people we're around. If you've ever heard the quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I have a friend who's a brilliant entrepreneur who has 3 children under the age of 5. And when she thinks about that, that depresses her because she's, changing diapers and dealing with little kids all the time. No, we're talking about where you go for advice, where you go for support, who your accountability groups are, right? Where is that physically? Like change your environment. And the third is change your habits, which is what we're talking about here. Okay. So we're talking about lasting change by changing our habits in tiny ways. He's got his own stuff, behaviormodel.org. You can look at, which is also in line with the similar stuff. So we talked about the new identity. Okay. Now what I want to do is for everybody to brainstorm some behaviors and habits to support the new identity, and then brainstorm some micro habits to support this new identity. So let me give an example. I'm focused on improving physical health, but if your aspiration is I want to improve my physical health, the identity is I'm a healthy person who cares for and moves my body. Okay, so some behaviors, these are maybe big behaviors, right? They could be behaviors that you're not doing right now at all. None of them. Eat 150 grams of protein a day, increase exercise, get better sleep. These all may feel aspirational and big and massive changes. Okay, so then you break it down, like, even picking one of those. Okay, what could increase exercise habit look more like? All right, let's break that down. Well, it could be walk 10,000 steps a day, strength training 30 minutes 3 times a week. Okay, so what's the micro habit? This may seem silly. Do 2 wall push-ups every time I pee. And so, wait, I'm not sharing that anymore, right? Did you not see any of that? But I just walked through it verbally. So I think you know what I'm talking about, right? So, so the micro habit is, I'll pull it up there. Sorry. The micro habit is do 2 wall push-ups every time I pee. Okay. So that may seem really silly. Like it may seem like, oh my gosh, no. I want to get a gym membership and I'm going to go an hour every day. But if you're going 0 minutes every day now, that is not usually sustainable change. Okay. But what could be sustainable change is figuring out something you already do every day. This is what both of these geniuses talk about, right? You have to stack it to something you already do. And that's the cue. All right. And you're casting vote for your new identity. So think about something you already do and then be like, what can I do that literally takes less than 2 minutes to just start building some space of a new habit? And this is an example that BJ Fogg did. Every time he peed, he got even more specific. After I wash my hands, because there needs to be a specific cue, I do 2 push-ups against the wall, right? And so I'm just starting to move my body. And then like he built that into it, like it became unconscious, right? It was first conscious and then it became unconscious. And then he could like actually build from there. Like, all right, now I'm going to do where I can, if I'm in my house, I'm going to do, 2 real push-ups. And now I'm going to do 5 push-ups and do 10 push-ups. And it actually built in a habit of more physical movement throughout the day by just attaching it to every time he peed. Okay. So the point is break it down into something that seems almost so silly, like so silly and so small that it seems like it won't bring lasting change. And you're actually in the sweet spot that it actually has the chance to be a building block of bringing lasting change. Okay. Because where we get tripped up is when we have we butt up too much and then it's just not sustainable. So we want to build on things that work here. So here's just like, again, I know I'm focused on physical stuff here, but this is not all physical stuff, but here's just some examples of some micro habits. I started drinking a glass of water before I drink a cup of coffee That was about 10 years ago. That was like a New Year's thing. I decided I drink a cup of coffee. I'm just going to drink a glass of water first. How hard is that? How hard is that to do? And I still do it every single day. So now it's unconscious, but it was super conscious for the first few weeks. All right. Wake up in the morning, do a couple air squats, jumping jacks, just do something. A thank you walk to the bathroom is something I coach people to consider doing every single day. When you first wake up, you walk into the bathroom. When your left foot hits the ground, say thank. Your right foot hits the ground, say you. So you're starting the day as you walk to the bathroom with a vibration of gratitude. Okay. Don't say I'm going to read 20 books this month. I am going to read one page each night. I mean, can you read one page? I think so, right? Even when you're really tired, you don't feel like building that habit, read one page. Okay. So you get on the point. Eat literally, I mean, this is how it sounds so crazy. It's like, I want to eat better. I'm going to eat one green bean, every dinner or something. I'm going to eat one piece of vegetable on a fork before, I finish my dinner. And you end up maybe eating more, but the point is you make it achievable. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, here's the exercise here. There's the example. All right. So in the area you want to transform, let me stop sharing. Just brainstorm. You don't have to put all this in the chat, but just maybe brainstorm some behaviors, just big picture behaviors. All right. These are I need to, eat better, right? I want to exercise more. And then try to break that down into realistic habits that you could grow towards, and then a micro habit that you could actually start today. Okay. Just brainstorm. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do it. And then what I want you to do is you could have maybe a handful of micro habits that you're thinking of that you brainstorm that you might want to start today. And then there's a way to actually score them as to which are the best of those micro habits. All right. So I'll give you a couple minutes. I don't have any nice music to play, but I'll let you focus on that. If you got any questions, you can pop on and ask verbally if you need to. I'm going to go on mute. Okay, anybody want to share any ideas you brainstormed for micro habits? You can share the bigger behavior or bigger shift if you want to, but any micro habits anybody wants to share verbally? No?
I can share a micro habit that I've started doing.
Yeah, okay.
So something I've been wanting to improve is my posture. And
Mm.
so
You're gonna
I
say that. I'm
set,
gonna sit up.
so a few, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I set a reminder on my phone at just kind of a random time. It's 10:25 a.m. And every day at 10:25 a.m., I get this notification on my phone that says check your posture. And so there are
Nice.
times where I'll just immediately make the change and then I turn off the reminder. And then there's other times where I actually keep that reminder on. And then every time I look at my phone throughout the day, I think about my posture and make that change.
Mm. Cool. That's awesome. Thanks, McKenna. So I think as I think of a couple of you were talking about kind of mastering your state, right? Your emotional state. And breath is a really great way to do that. And just like an Olympian, just like a boxer, not that I'm a fan of boxing and people getting head injuries that don't, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but just like a competitor, okay. It's obviously not when you, or just like a performer, an actress, it's all the stuff you're doing when nobody's looking that gets you to a place where you can perform when the gun goes off, right? Or when the opening, the curtains open. So in order to master your breath in the middle of a crisis, so if you think about like, all right, I want to have breath mastery, right? I want to be able to have tools where I'm mastering my breath all the time. I'm aware of my breath. I'm consciously breathing, not all the time, but I have the ability to be able to do that, like, not thinking about it later, but in the moment. So one way to start that mastery, which I didn't even understand anything about breath 3 years ago, just to be clear. Like, I think I was mastering breathing as a fighter pilot just because you had to, because it helped you manage your fear. But I now am participating in breathwork sessions with my good friend Jason Campbell, who leads it every Monday to Thursday morning. I When I wake up first thing in the morning, I do breath work before I do anything else. I do 3 rounds of what's called Wim Hof breathing. Now that's more energizing breathing. It's not practicing settling down breathing. Okay. But it's first thing in the morning. So I'm looking for some energizing breathing. So, but the first time I started doing that was a new habit. So I would open my eyes first thing in the morning and I'd be like, all right, I'm opening up the Wim Hof app and I'm now going to start doing some rounds of Wim Hof breathing. And I've now done, like, for 3 years, I've done that consistently nearly every morning. It's the first thing I do. So the prompt, the micro habit is the couple minutes of breath work. The prompt is I open my eyes in the morning, right? Something that I do anyway. And instead of grabbing your phone and looking at all the bad news that's happening in the world or getting on social media, I go to my breathing app, right? And I do around, ideally 3 rounds of breath work. But the micro habit could be in a situation like this for breath work, because if your breath work that you're thinking is focused on parasympathetic breath work, so there's box breathing that you could do, which is in for a certain cadence, hold for a certain cadence, out for a certain cadence, hold for a certain cadence. It doesn't matter what the number is as long as it's all equal. So in for 3, hold for 3, out for 3, hold for 3. Or there's other breath tools. Usually it's breathing out longer than you breathe in order to activate the parasympathetic. So as you're getting ready to go to sleep, your head hits the pillow. So that could be the cue for the micro habit, right? My head hits the pillow. I'm going to do 3 deep breaths where I count in through the nose for 5 and I count out through the mouth for 7. Just as an example, right? So the micro habit is head hits the pillow, in for 5, out for 7, 3 times. Don't say 20 times. Maybe even say 1 time to start with. Honestly, just 1 time. Like, even though you're dead tired, there's like 1 time, I'm going to just do a deep breath in, out. And you can then build on that. Let's say you just do 1 breath. You build on that over time, where now you're consciously doing parasympathetic breath work before you go to sleep. It's going to help you sleep, get a higher quality sleep. Then you can look for other ways, like, okay, I now have a new habit that I'm doing unconsciously. Now I can increase it. Maybe I'll do 10. before I go to bed. And then maybe I'll look for another time of the day to do another type of breath. And then when you get in a car accident, you're immediately, able to like, all right, control the breath. You may or may not have heard, like 6 months ago, I was out running in Iowa and I was attacked and assaulted by a guy who stalked me for like a mile and jumped me from behind and sexually molested me. I mean, it was just a horrific, traumatic experience. And I fought him off and chased him down. And he's going through the judicial process right now because I was determined that he wasn't going to hurt anybody else. But it was a traumatic freaking experience. Okay. And so, like, in between when he assaulted me and when the police showed up, when I was still I chased him to where he got away into the brush. I followed him into the brush until I realized I was putting myself in a dangerous situation. And then I disengaged and I'm there still all by myself. The only two people out in this area are him and me. And I needed to settle myself down. And so I was able to immediately realize I got to settle myself down and start doing some deep breaths, start doing some box breathing, settle myself down as best I can. Now, I didn't get into a perfect parasympathetic state. It took me a couple of days, to be honest with you. I was in a very heightened adrenaline state, but allowed me in the moment to like settle myself down and be present, be vigilant, right? Still be aware that there's a threat out here, and think clearly about the things that I needed to do. So, I mean, I'd say that's obviously an extreme example, but the same thing, same reactions happen when somebody in our life triggers us, or something happens at work, or something in a relationship that's just like, it's the same reaction. It's the lizard brain going into fight or flight, getting you into that sympathetic state, getting you into that fear state. And one of the best ways to address that is to master the breath. But the way you become an Olympian in mastering the breath in those triggered moments is by mastering the breath in untriggered moments and building patterns of doing the reps, day in and day out. But it can start with one breath is the point. Because if you're just like, oh, I'm going to meditate for an hour, don't meditate for an hour. Meditate for a minute. Meditate for a minute. And then, over time, if you feel like a minute is comfortable, then do two. So this is the point, is like, okay, if you want to meditate, as soon as I finish doing this every day, I'm going to sit still and, for a minute and do this. And there's a cue, you make it easy, you make it desirable, you start to see the results, and then you build on. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, let me go back. Here. So one thing I do after I've brainstormed my behaviors, all right, and the habits that I want to do, then if you want to pick one, don't pick like 10, I'm going to, Monday morning, I'm going to start 10 new habits. If you want to pick the one to do, think about it this way: rate each of them on the impact they'll have on your identity on a scale of 1 to 10. Rate them on how easy or hard they are to do. Okay. And rate them on how motivated you are to do them. Okay. Because that matters. All right. If it's something that you just really don't want to do, then like, don't start with that, because like, it's just not going to sustain. So how easy is it? How big of an impact you think you could have on your identity over time, and how motivated you are to do it. All right. So this is, again, the brainstorming exercise. You can do this more later on for any area of your life. Okay. And then once you rate those, you'll see which one kind of rises to the top, which one has the highest score, that's going to have the biggest impact, that's easy to do, and I'm motivated to do it. And that's the one you pick. Okay. Of all the ideas of things to pick. Okay. And so then think about, the last thing to do is to write down exactly what your process is going to be. So after I open my eyes in the morning, okay, which is, I just answered that. After I open my eyes, when? First thing in the morning, where? In bed, right? What? I'm going to do, for me now, it's 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing. Okay. But so this is after here's another example. After I after my head hits the pillow, going to bed at night, in bed, I'm going to do one deep breath where I exhale longer than I inhale. And how am I going to celebrate? I mean, even just saying to yourself, like, this is all part of the psychology of celebrate that you did it. Like, you could say to yourself, good job. Like, even if it's in your head, you don't have to say, maybe your spouse or your, dog will think you're weird or whatever. But like, just celebrate to yourself, like, good job. You just did it. There's something about the reward that actually really matters for us to continue with it. Okay. So, all right. So there are some tools to summarize, for transformation. The first is set the identity-based transformation using I am statements. Okay. And write those down too. I mean, write them down so you can see them, especially if this is an area you're really focused on. Even just looking at that every single day, having it somewhere you can see it and you can believe it. You can be like, yes, I'm casting votes for my future identity every single day. I'm not beating myself up that I'm not there yet. I'm looking at it as my North Star. This is the person I am, not the one I wish I am, not the one I'm, hope I am. I am. And then you identify, okay, thinking about prompts, things you're already doing, thinking about behaviors, and then breaking that down into micro habits that are less than 2 minutes to start with. All right. Then you brainstorm all that out, identify a micro habit that is the best chance to be casting votes for that identity. Okay. And you pick the one that is going to have the biggest impact on your identity, that is easy to do, and that you're motivated to do. And then you create the, prompt. This is when I'll do it. You list it out. When I do this is what I'll do, when, where, and then how I'm going to celebrate. And I would love to hear back from you guys in the Facebook community. If you pick one, maybe there's a lot of information here. Maybe you need some time after this to reflect and really pick one. If you've picked one, type it into the chat. If you think you got a good micro habit, let me know. But if you need a little more time to reflect on it, pick one before the end of the day. I just want to encourage you. There's a lot of inputs we have, a lot of distractions, but before your head hits a pillow tonight, pick a new micro habit based on some of the principles here. And, your micro habit may be something you do first thing in the morning, so you won't be able to do it today, but commit to, I'm going to do this starting today or starting tomorrow, depending on the time of day, you're actually going to try and do it. All right. So everybody give me a thumbs up or something in the chat, that you're going to do this before you go to bed tonight. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Awesome. And if you're willing to share in the Facebook group that, hey, this is the identity that I picked based on the coaching, this is the micro habit that I identified, there's something about accountability, right? So put it in there and just announcing, I'm committed to doing this every single day, and I'm starting today. And then we can all, check on each other and see how things are going. Again, don't beat yourself up if you skip a day or you forget or whatever. That's not the point. It's self-compassion. But also there's something about declaring to the world that you're going to do something. That's how I felt. There's no way I would have done what I did in Lean Life Challenge had I not been a part of this group that was all going to kick my ass. I mean, I'm not going to kick your ass. So, I just meant it's accountability that we were in it together, right? And that we were going to do it together. And if I fell off the wagon and, just decided not to do it anymore, then I was going to have to answer to my friends, right? About why I was giving up. So I want to have that kind of, love and accountability for everybody as you experiment with some of this, see what works, see what doesn't work, and identify, how you've been able to have quick wins, and then let us celebrate those wins with you as well. Okay. All right. Anybody have any last questions or things you need some help with on this topic? All right. Well, everybody have an amazing weekend. I'm your wingman. You got this. You can do it. And for everyone who shared about mastering your emotional state, these are not easy things to do, but just like going to the gym, start doing those reps and you will be able to become a master. That in any situation, you will not suppress what's going on, but you'll be able to be in control and manage it and let those things pass through. I know you can do that. I know you can. So, all right, I'm here for you. All the best, everybody. Have an awesome weekend. Take care.